I always thought the silence of the jungle was my best friend. A peaceful deal, a break from the city noise. But that night the silence became my biggest threat. The sound of my own breath was a screaming echo in a whole lot of nothing. The rustle of a fallen leaf was a panic alarm. The lack of life was proof of something deadly nearby. The lack of sound was the start of the end. My name is Alex, and I became the one being hunted. I'm a wildlife photographer, a guy who collects moments no one else will ever see. My life, my passion, is this crazy mission for what's wild, what's out of reach, what's beautiful and what's dangerous. I spend months, sometimes years, in the thickest jungles on earth, walking on sketchy ground, sleeping under the stars, feeling the damp dirt on my skin, all for just one shot, that one little moment, that split second, where nature shows its soul in a single, perfect picture. It's my fix, the only reason I do this. I've dealt with flash floods in rainforests, where the ground turned into a crazy river in minutes, taking everything I had. I've spent whole nights camping with grizzly bears just a few feet away, feeling their hot breath and hearing their bodies move. I've been lost in salt deserts, where every drop of water is a priceless treasure, worth more than gold. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for the job that took me to Ranthambore National Park in India. My goal was simple, almost a legend. I was trying to get a shot of a Bengal tiger. But not just any tiger. I was after an old male the local guides called Roger. The name means king in Hindi, and for good reason. He wasn't just a predator. He was a ghost. Big, powerful, unbelievably hard to find. A living legend among photographers and conservationists, a creature so rare that just saying his name in a whisper gave you a shiver of respect and fear. Believe me, in my line of work, patience is more valuable than any camera or lens you can buy. I knew I'd need time, silence, and a gut feeling for his territory. I came to the park with a team of experienced guides, planning to spend a whole week, camping in the spots where you are most likely to see him, studying his movements, his hunting habits, the daily routine of one of the world's most amazing predators. The mistake was small, almost nothing, really. At the time, my guides, guys who lived and breathed the jungle, had warned me about a side trail, a risky shortcut that could lead to a watering hole no one ever went to. They told me to stay away. It's his hunting ground, one of them said, with a look in his eyes that I should have paid attention to, but me. With the kind of cockiness that only comes from experience and wanting that perfect shot. I decided to risk it. The reward, I figured, would be worth the risk, the glory of a picture no one had ever taken. The shortcut was longer than I thought. With every step, the jungle got thicker. The leaves made a canopy so tight that sunlight barely got through, creating a world of shadows. Sounds got stretched out, and the sound of my own steps, the creak of my backpack, sounded like a scream in the huge quiet of the place. The jungle, which was my friend before, was now a stranger, an enemy. That's when I noticed the afternoon fog, which was normal for the area, was coming in faster than expected. All of a sudden, I couldn't see much. The map on my GPS went dead. A static red line on a dark screen. The compass, I looked at it more than once, and it was pointing the wrong way. Like the earth itself had flipped upside down. In a few seconds, I became a stranger on my own journey. The hunter became the lost. That feeling, the fear of being lost, not the fear of being alone, but the fear of not knowing where your next step will take you, the feeling of being in a box, with the walls closing in on you. I decided to set up camp. The sun was gone, and the jungle, which was a sanctuary of colors and sounds, became a maze of shadows and hidden dangers. Dusk is the most dangerous time in the jungle. It's when predators get active, when their prey gets easier to see. And I was right in the middle of one of the thickest habitats for big cats on the planet. I started a fire. The crackle of the wood was the only thing that felt safe, the only thing that reminded me of home. I sat down and drank some water. The cool liquid going down my throat and reminding me I was still alive. The wind was calm. The air was cold. Just the sounds of nature. But something was wrong. The birds stopped singing. The cicadas, which was so loud before, were totally silent. Just a silence that was heavy. A silence that told me something big, something very big, was close. That feeling, the fear of being lost, not the fear of being alone, but the fear of not knowing where your next step will take you, the feeling of being in a box, with the walls closing in on you. And then, I felt it. It wasn't a sound. It was the lack of a sound. Something big was close, moving with a skill that not even I, with all my experience, could match, a sound you couldn't hear. A vibration in the air that only a predator could make. I decided to make camp. The sun had already disappeared, and the jungle, once a sanctuary of colors and sounds, had become a maze of shadows and hidden dangers. Dusk is the most dangerous time in the wild. It's when predators become most active, when their prey become most visible. And I was in the middle of one of the densest big cat habitats on the planet. The footprint, big and clear, bigger than any of the guides had shown me. It was on the trail, just a few feet from my tent. A fresh footprint. I took out my flashlight and looked closer. The edges were still sharp. The dirt hadn't had time to settle. He had been through here less than 10 minutes ago. And what really scared me was that his footprint was mixed in with mine. He was following me. For how long? I looked round, my heart pounding in my chest, a drum of panic. I could feel it. The feeling of being watched. Where was he? In that dark, with the fog. He could be just a few feet away, and I wouldn't see him. I was a bright, noisy spot in the dark, and he was part of it. He was the shadow, the night, the silence. I put out the fire. The light, which was a comfort before, now felt like a spotlight screaming danger. My whole body was tense. I grabbed my hiking stick. The only thing I had that could be a weapon, and I waited. I lit a fire. The crackle of the wood was my only comfort, the only thing that reminded me of being human. I sat and drank some water. The cold liquid running down my throat and reminding me that I was still alive. The wind was calm. The air was still. Just the sounds of nature. But something was wrong. The bird's song had stopped. The cicadas, once so loud I could barely hear my own thoughts, were in absolute silence, just an oppressive quiet, a silence that told me something very, very big was close. And then, I felt it. It wasn't a sound. It was the absence of sound. Something large was nearby, moving with a skill that not even I, with all my experience, could replicate, an imperceptible sound. A vibration in the air that only a top predator could produce. I found the footprint. It was big, distinct. Bigger than any the guides had shown me. It was on the trail, just a few feet from my tent. A fresh footprint. I took out my flashlight and examined it. The edges were still sharp. The dirt hadn't had time to settle. He had passed here less than 10 minutes ago. And what terrified me was that his print was mixed with mine. He was following me. For how long? I looked round, my heart pounding in my chest, a drum of pure panic. I could feel it. The sensation of being watched. Where was he? In that darkness, with the fog. He could be just a few feet away, and I wouldn't see him. I was a bright, noisy spot in the dark. And he was a part of it. He was the shadow, the night, the silence. The chess match had begun. He wanted to test me. He was the embodiment of patience. I had to be unpredictable. My brain, trained for years to observe nature, was now in survival mode. I knew the worst thing I could do was run. Running would activate the chase instinct, and I would lose the game before it even started. I had to look bigger. I had to be a threat. I had to use everything I knew about them, every bit of information I'd absorbed over the years of study. I remembered my guides. Their wisdom, passed down through generations, was the only thing separating me from that night. They taught me about their on the back. Tigers, being ambush predators, prefer to attack from behind. I took my backpack and, with a piece of charcoal from the extinguished fire, I drew two large white eyes. It seemed crazy, something a lunatic would do. But in that moment, madness was my only hope, the only thing that could give me even the smallest advantage. I put it on backward, so the eyes were on the back of my neck, looking behind me like a pair of headlights. And I waited. I could feel it, his presence. He was there, the snap of a twig, the sound of something large moving slowly through the vegetation, and then the silence, a silence that weighed more than any sound. A silence that screamed the presence of danger. That's when I saw him, two points of amber light, glowing in the darkness, like two falling stars. They weren't artificial lights. They were his eyes. He was about 10 yards away, watching me. Not moving, not blinking. I could smell his breath, the smell of earth, of the wild, of a predator at the peak of its power. I took out my flashlight and pointed it at him. He didn't move. His eyes didn't shift. He wasn't afraid. I was looking at the king, and he was looking at me like an intruder, Emil. I knew I couldn't break eye contact. It was the only thing preventing an attack, the only thing that showed I wasn't easy prey. My hand was shaking, but I held it steady, like a rock in a storm. I breathed with every breath. I could feel my oxygen and strength draining away. I knew I couldn't stay there forever. I had to move. I started to back up, slowly, just a few inches at a time. The tiger followed me. For every step I took back, he took a step forward. It was a dance of life and death. An ancient dance between the hunter and the hunted. I felt my leg catch on a root. I almost fell. I flinched, and the tiger, he saw my hesitation, my moment of weakness. He took a large stride. The sound of his paws on the forest floor loud. It was a sound of power and imminent death. The tension was suffocating. I remembered something a guide once told me. When a tiger stares you down, make yourself big. Make yourself noisy. I grabbed my walking stick and slammed it on the ground, dot once, dot twice. A loud, sharp sound. And I screamed. A high-pitched yell that came from the depths of my chest, from a place of pure panic, but also of pure defiance. I didn't scream out of fear. I screamed out of rage, out of fury. My voice, which had trembled before, was now a weapon. He hesitated. The surprise in his eyes was a miracle. He didn't expect it. He didn't expect his prey to fight back. He saw me as unpredictable, and unpredictability for a predator is a risk. A risk he wasn't willing to take. He backed up one step. I started walking in slow circles. I knew he would follow me. I kept him in my field of vision, and he kept me in his. It was a dance, a never-ending dance. A dance that lasted for hours under the darkness of the night. And then, another. I kept hitting the ground, holding my posture, my gaze firm. He turned and disappeared into the darkness, a phantom that didn't dare face its own shadow. The silence returned. But this time, it was a different silence. It was the silence of victory. I began to move. I was exhausted. My body was in a state of shock, adrenaline keeping me on my feet, but my muscles were screaming for rest. Still, I had to keep going. I had to get to the main trail. I knew that if I stayed put, he would come back. I kept walking. Slow, but steady steps. I was cold, hungry, thirsty. But my mind was focused on one thing: surviving. The forest taught me a lesson that no classroom or textbook ever could. We all have our tigers in life. Those shadows that hunt us, that test our limits, that force us to confront who we really are. It could be a dream you abandoned, a project that seems impossible, or an internal battle you don't want to face. These are the predators that make us feel small, lost and helpless. I held on. I continued walking in circles, and the sun, it began to rise. The first ray of light hit me, and I felt reborn. The light made him retreat. He wasn't a phantom. He was a being of flesh and bone. He was afraid of the light, afraid of being seen, afraid of being discovered. He looked me in the eyes. My body was trembling. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. And then he backed away. He lay down, like a cat, and watched me, with the cold curiosity of an animal in its own territory. That's when I realized I wasn't the prey. I was the toy. I got up, grabbed my backpack. My jacket was torn. My camera was cracked. I was bleeding, but the wound was superficial, just a scratch. I knew I couldn't run. I had to be smart. I had to use my brain. I looked at him. He was watching me with a chilling calmness. I remembered something a guide once told me. Be predictable. A tiger hates unpredictability. And then I heard it. The sound didn't come from behind me. It came from in front of me, the sound of something large moving through the vegetation. He hadn't retreated. He had flanked me. He knew what he was doing. He was the king of that territory, and I was just an intruder. It wasn't a bite. It was a test attack. He hit me with his paw. I fell to my knees. My backpack flew off, and I felt a tear in my vest. I looked at him. He wasn't attacking to kill. He was testing me. He was playing. I saw him one last time. He turned and got lost in the darkness of the forest. I kept walking until I heard it. It wasn't a tiger. It was the sound of a radio. It was my search party. I made it. I found my way back. The search party found me, just in time. In that moment, I didn't think about the photo. I didn't think about fame. I didn't think about anything but life. The fear didn't leave, but the respect that had doubled in size. I don't remember the exact moment the fear left. Was it when I heard the crackle of the radio? Was it the sight of the search party's flashlights cutting through the darkness? Or was it the sound of their voices, human voices, that finally broke the oppressive silence? The moment they found me, I didn't feel relief. I felt reborn. The cold, the exhaustion, the pain, it all faded away, replaced by the simple, undeniable truth that I was alive. In that moment, lying on the damp ground, I didn't think about the photo. I didn't think about fame. I didn't think about the story I would tell. I just thought about life, about how fragile it is and how fiercely it fights to continue. I was a hunter, But he showed me the role I was really meant to play, the student. He stripped away my arrogance and my assumptions about the wild, and reminded me that in the face of true power, all you have is your will to survive. But I survived because I kept going, step by step, even when I had no map and no light. I survived because my survival instinct was stronger than my fear. Because in that endless night, I stopped trying to control the uncontrollable and learned to adapt, to be quiet, to be patient, to be bigger. The terror of that night never truly left me, but the respect for what I faced that feeling had doubled in size. This story isn't just about me and Roger. It's about the fight that happens in the quiet moments, when no one is watching. It's about finding strength when you have none left to give. I want to ask you, what is your tiger? What impossible challenge are you facing right now that feels like it's hunting you? Leave your story here in the comments. Share your struggle. Let's build a community of survivors who refuse to give up, who know that the toughest battles are the ones fought in the dark. Your story isn't just a story. It's someone's map to freedom.